What's going on, everybody? Today is the day that I start my 1-ton build, finally. Originally, I was going to do a Willys pickup, decided against it. The one that I had was a little too far gone, and it didn't have a back seat. I really would like to have a back seat in mine. So, I picked up another Crew Cab S10. This one is a ZR5, as you can see. It hit a deer, so a lot of the front clip is missing, and hasn't been running in who knows how long. But I'll give you a quick walk around of this thing, show you some of the parts that I have laying around, and today we're going to jump right into the work in the rear. So let's start with a walk around. This truck here is a 2004, I think is what it is. I'll have to check the title, I can't remember. But funny enough, oh, it does have this door sticker. This one's an 02. So yeah, you can see this one's been sitting for a long time. There's stuff in it kind of everywhere. It sat outside like this with the engine uncovered for a long time. So I think that this motor's going to be locked up. I haven't even looked at it, tried anything with it. I mean, it's rough. Just stuff, like you can hear that. Well, that one doesn't spin very good. Anyways. This is scrap, not doing anything with it. I'm actually going to put the OM617 Diesel that I was going to put into the other truck into this one. So it's actually pretty nice that the fenders are off of it and everything. I likely will not be running inner fender liners just at all, just because my tires are going to be in the way. I might make custom ones at some point, but likely just going to be nothing. A lot of this wiring is going to get stripped out of here once I get the drivetrain running and set. I'm going to run a standalone harness for the transmission. The only thing I want to try to keep a factory ECU for is to try to run factory gauges. If not, on something like this, I don't think that's going to be that big of a deal. But that's all down the road. Right now, it's just a beat up little cheap S10 pickup. It needs rockers and cab corners. The bed's actually pretty nice. No telling what's going to be under these flares, but I'm probably going to cut pretty high to fit those, to fit my new tires. I got a tailgate from the junkyard that doesn't have like any rust on it. The one that was on here, I put onto my other one that I just got, which is just a beater truck that didn't have a tailgate. So I've got the nice tailgate for it. Spare tire. All the tires are junk. Here's the one fender that was still good. Hood off of a different truck that's going away because it's the wrong color. Got the header panel off that other truck. Overall, nothing special. It's just a Crew Cab S10. It is the ZR5, which I really like. I wanted that for these bed rails and for the roof rack, so that with M11 we can build a custom roof rack for this. That'll be really cool. So the axles going into it are these Dana 60 and Sterling 10.5 out of an 06 F350. These are just mock-up tires for now. They're 37s on stock steel wheels. And I'm going to be running either 40s or 42s on this truck, depending on how it is when I get it built. But these were free, so they're going to be my mock-up tires. There's the front axle right there. And then over here, we've got some of the fun parts. So I've got U-bolt eliminators and a radius arm kit from Rough Stuff so that I can get these axles bolted onto this truck. Well, bolted. These are going to have to be welded to the rear axle, welded to the frame, and then get these built. And all of this needs to get torn off. So there's a lot of work to do. But today, we're going to be starting in the rear. I'm going to put this thing up on jack stands as tall as I can get it and get this rear end out of here, get it posted up for sale. It's got the G80 in it since it is a ZR5. And then get spring purchase cut off of this axle. You're just going to lob them off, figure out where the other ones need to go. I probably will end up making new shock mounts, but we're just going to leave those on there for now. This is going to be a spring over. So normally these S10 trucks are spring under. we're changing it to spring over. That'll give us all the lift we need in the rear. We can keep the stock leaf springs so that they'll ride good, they'll flex pretty good for leaf sprung. I am keeping it leaf sprung in the rear, coils in the front. I'm going to do coil and shock, not coil over. I've got shocks for it already off of a different F350. So yeah, we're just going to start jacking this thing up, tearing all this off, tear these side steps off, maybe put them up for sale, see if anybody wants them. If not, they'll go in the scrap bin. There's a lot of work to do. When you start a project like this, and this is going to be the first one for me that's a full total from scratch all the way build. Because everything else I've done has got a lot of bolt-on parts, and yeah, I've made some parts here and there, but this is going to really be a full build. The Superduty axles, the Mercedes diesel, trying to get everything to function, have functioning air conditioning, try for cruise control. That'd be pretty neat. I don't know if that one's going to happen. But yeah, custom suspension. So I'm going to get all my stuff kind of moved away from the truck, and then we'll start working on tearing this axle out. And I'll probably bring you back once this axle is removed and we start fabricating on this one. That's kind of where the fun stuff is, the interesting things. So I'm going to get started. I'll see you when this axle's out of here. All right, here's where we're at. I didn't really show cleaning off the axle and putting the new mounts on. Not all that exciting, just got to measure it for center. This is sitting on weight, mostly. The front is on jack stands, so it's kind of tipped forward a little bit and pulling some of the weight off the rear. But that's pretty well sitting on weight. There's going to be a lot of trimming and stuff that needs done and fine tuning. For now, I've got these U-bolt eliminators just tacked on. I can weld those in fully once I make sure I like the pinion angle. Because right now the pinion angle is just set matching. Oh, let's see if I can get out of here. Matching the factory one, which of course is going to be a little low. But I got to figure out what I'm going to do with the transfer case. Because if I can put a slip yoke eliminator on the transfer case, then I'm going to need to angle this pinion up quite a bit. If I can't, and I have one of these slip yoke drive shafts, then this is about the angle it needs to be at for the drive shaft geometry. So I got to look into that a little bit. If the slip yoke is fine, I might just leave it, because I don't mind the slip yoke as long as I don't get any vibrations or anything. The Blazer I built didn't get anything crazy, but we'll see. But for now, that's in there. The U-bolt eliminators are awesome. I really like them. Obviously, there's just 2 bolts in there right now. But the rear is pretty much done for a little while. The next step is to pull the front end apart and start tearing it out and get that fender in the trash and start pulling the motor out and cleaning the frame, junk this bumper because it doesn't need to be here, and really start moving forward with the front stuff. The rear is as good as it's going to be for now, but I am really, really liking the height that I have set right there. And these are worn 37s, like I mentioned earlier. I'm going to be running at least a 40, I think. 37 does look pretty good, so we'll see though. I really do want to run the 40s. And for a height comparison here, I'm 6'2", and the bed rails are at my shoulder now. So it's a lot taller than it was, and I can't wait once I get this one to where it's rolling, then I can roll it outside, and I have a bone stock one that I can park next to it, and we can really see the difference between the two, which is going to be fun. So for now, I got some other projects I got to do, but for you guys here in a second, you'll see me jumping on the front and getting that all cleaned off. All right, for me, it's been a few days since I've been recording. For you guys, it's just going to be a couple seconds. So bear with me while I do a rundown of kind of where we're at, and then we'll actually jump into some fun work today instead of me just saying, look, it's stripped and whatever. But let me show you the condition of the truck and where it's sitting, and then I'll go over the parts that we're going to be playing with today over the next couple days probably, honestly. But I'll show you what I have here, and then I'll tell you a little bit about what's coming, and then we'll just jump right into it. So as you can see, there's a couple changes on the truck. Side steps are gone, that's nice, and the front end is stripped. I've got this piece of angle iron on here, just tack welded to keep these from moving, twisting, whatever. Especially because I wasn't sure if the motor was going to come out before any of the welding over here was going to start. So got that on there, just helping keep that spacing. But front end is stripped. All the brackets are gone. I made my scrap run today, and there's some cleaning that needs to be done. I'm thinking I'm going to fill this with a piece of metal. I'm not sure on that yet, because in my kit over here, I've showed you guys the control arms that I'm going to be building. There's the lower. I got that one kind of just put together so I could see it. I've got these Barnes spring towers, and I'm not quite sure where they're. A little heavy for one-handed. Bear with me. Zoom out. I'm not quite sure where they're going to land. So if they land here, obviously I need to do some metal filling over here. If it lands there, obviously I need to do some metal filling there. So today is going to be the day where I kind of play with the axle forward and back. Typically, I think I'm going to center it in this section of flat spot here, because that's a nice area for the axle to travel if it came anywhere close to all the way up here on the frame. This I don't want to modify too much. I mean, I could, but that's nice reinforcement for the steering box. That's what these 3 bolts are. So I want to keep this section kind of out of the way of any of the work that I'm going to be doing. I will have to change the steering box for the 2-wheel drive Astrovan box so that the pitman arm comes off the front, and then I'll have to get a pitman arm for it. I'm not going to use this ball joint style because I did order the a Heim steering for it, basically the same as what I run on Meatball, my XJ that I'm always wheeling. And I really like the Heim steering. And for something like this, the extra strength of the Heims is going to be really nice. I know you can get strong tie rod ends and whatever, but I prefer the Heims. I just like them. So that's what I'm going to run. I got them on order. And then over here, we've got the axle. I've got everything off of it that needs to come off of it for now, except for the tie rod, because the tie rod is going to hold the wheels from kind of flopping all over. So decided to leave that. When I get my DOM Heim joint steering, that's going to go away. This bracket's probably going to get cut off. Let me zoom in a little bit. But honestly, if I don't have to mess with it, I don't know why I would. So that's up in the air. I have an offset track bar bracket coming for the axle side, and then I have a frame side track bar bracket coming for the frame to also run Heim joints on that. But today, to get started, I'm going to clean all of this mess up and get it thrown into a trash can. And that way, and move all my junk that's kind of accumulated over the last few days. I picked this up for a different project to pull the motor out of. So everything's kind of compressed this way while I kind of got that last minute. But I'm going to clean this area up so that we can wheel the axle underneath here. And then we can use this fender, because I just have the one, to kind of mock up where this axle is going to land in relationship to the wheel opening. Generally, I think a good rule of thumb is I'm just going to center it in here, or maybe center it right where that shock used to be, because right here, these 2 squares are where the control arm mounted for the IFS. So roughly in there is going to be good. Stretching it forward a little bit is probably going to be nice. That's what I did on Mike's Blazer when I built his straight axle Blazer. But I'll get this cleaned up. We'll roll the axle up under here and start tacking all this together and get to building. All right, we've got the axle kind of roughly in here in the general vicinity of where it's going to go. We had to lift this up kind of a lot, so we've got the wheels underneath the jack stands holding it up. But where we're going to put the spring towers is going to be one leg of it's going to come down this section of frame here, so that's going to be really nice. Lots of thick frame to weld to, and the other one's going to go right down the middle of this hole. And the reason these holes are here are so that you can get back to that hardware that holds the front diff into the S10 platform. Since that's gone, we don't need this square hole anymore. So we're going to cut some 1/4" steel out of here and fill that in. These have nice little beveled edges, so we'll be able to fill the welds in really good. And then we can start measuring and mocking up where the spring towers are going to go. That should be pretty easy to get into place. And then I'm going to have to make spring mounts for the axle. It looks like I'll be able to use these bump stop pads for the spring mounts just with the width of this frame. So that'll be really nice because these are a really good flat, thick spot that I can weld to. And we'll have to center the axle left to right, but you can see over here, same thing. The bump stop pad looks like a really good spot for those spring towers. But we're going to go ahead and start with filling these in and then tacking the spring towers on, and then we'll get the skyjacker springs and maybe put a little bit of weight on them, kind of see what they're looking like, and we'll go from there. All right, one. This one's going to be tricky. Big gap. All right, so squares are welded in, frames capped in, and then the spring towers are tacked just to kind of get placement. The axle is roughly where we want it. Here's the springs I'm going to be using. They're Skyjacker 4.5-inch long arm, or 4.5-inch dual rate lift springs for a JK Wrangler. As you can see, they kind of land really nice on these bump stop pads off the Superduty axle. So what we're going to do over here on this other side, I'll show you because we don't have the spring in the way, is I have these M11 off-road WJ WJ coil spring perches. And if you don't know, the WJs have a really bad problem with the lower spring perches rusting off the axles. So I'm going to place this like that, weld all the way around on the inside, make that a really solid mount. Let me grab this piece. We'll weld this all in. Nice, pretty M11 spring perches. And then, since these are for a WJ, I have these WJ spring isolators. That's what goes on the lower here. So those will press onto this pipe, and then this little nub fits into this hole, and that keeps the spring from twisting. And you can see on these rubber isolators, there's a kind of a catch for the lower part of the spring so that that lower coil comes and rests in here. That'll be really nice. We can clock this to however I feel like putting it in here, I guess. But that way we'll have really nice spring perches, nice and solid, and then we'll also have isolators on the bottom, which will be really nice. And then I'm just going to have to build a little piece of pipe, or I might grab another set of these and weld the pipe section in up here on the top, coming down, so that way the spring can't fall out of here. These did come with spring retainers, but they're a little bit too big for the dual rate part of the coil, since the dual rate compresses all the way onto itself. that doesn't leave room for the retainer. So I'm going to get these welded in and get these probably not put on tonight because it's going to be a little hot, but we'll see. And then we'll probably put some pipe in here for the upper once I check to make sure that they fit into the coil spring. And then probably weld this in a little bit and start to put weight down on it to see what ride height's looking like with the towers looking right here. I'm only going to put a 1-inch weld on each side. That'll be plenty strong for mock-up purposes for now. And then once we're happy with ride height, because right now the front is way higher than the rear. I'm hoping that comes down a little bit. The only caveat to bringing it down too far is going to be this clearance here from the top of the diff to the bottom of the frame. We're going to clear this section of the frame. You can see right there, that's got plenty of clearance for the diff to come up in here. But we're probably going to have to put a bump stop to the top of the pumpkin housing here. That's going to be kind of my travel limit. So I'll get to work on making these spring perches and we'll kind of go from there.
You're giving me hold. Don't worry. I preheated before I welded it.
Don't worry, it's hot.
Get the temp cut just about 500 degrees.
Oh, you shouldn't weld under 455.
Switch my sides.
Good?
Ready?
Welding.
I just don't want the springs to
Coming down.
hit the frame.
Doesn't matter if they hit as long as the axle doesn't twist. As long as they don't come shooting out.
That put us. Truck's pulling forward now.
That's weight on it.
Yeah. Full weight? Like that's.
Yeah.
Those compressed a lot. That brought it right back to where we had it, maybe a little lower.
A little, maybe. The isolators will help.
Isolators bringing it up another 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch, but like, wow. Wow, that's right.
Come back. There we go. That's a pretty good ride height.
I like it.
That's pretty solid. Now, what's our clearance here is going to be the problem. That's pretty tight.
3 inches.
Well, and what I'm curious about is when the other motor is in here, where's that going to land? Because being a 5-cylinder, that's going to.
I feel like if it's going to come forward some, but I feel like if we get that rear sump pan.
Oh, but it'll be that way a little
be
bit.
over more, yeah. But I feel like if we get that rear.
I think that'll
sump
be
pan,
okay.
It should be fine, and it should sit behind it, which
I like these springs a lot. That's a lot of axle to shove underneath this truck. So the reason these isolators are not in right now is because those are still kind of freshly welded. Didn't want to melt the rubber on these. Even though these are pretty old, junky ones, they are free. So those are the ones I'm going to put in there. If we have to, we can put a little something up in here. That's still a little warm from welding on it too, to give it a little bit of spacing, but I think that's pretty good. If I can get away, this side I don't have any problems with. Let's see, where's my tape measure? Here's one. So if we're looking at, almost 5 inches, that'll be plenty for up travel. The only thing we'll have to do is put some outboard bump stops and make sure that there is clearance for the upper link here. The lower has a ton of space. I think that'll be okay. And it's going to be hanging down below the frame.
It should sit.
So the upper, as long as we kick back at a nice angle to avoid, or to kind of go along with this contour on the frame, I think that'll be pretty good. And this is where making the radius arm is going to make this way easier.
This is also going to get pushed forward quite a couple inches here,
Yeah.
considering the spring angle there.
Yeah, there's some spring angle there. That's from the truck moving forward on the axle, just as it came down.
We're going to get probably a good 2 or 3 inches forward on that.
Which is good, because that's where there's clearance over here. We got a ton of space in this little opening.
Yeah.
Because the frame kind of comes up, and then it's flat for right here.
Yeah.
So
That should be right where it sits.
I'm pretty happy with that. I think we'll pick it back up and put it on the jack stands for it to sit overnight. And then I'll finish weld the towers tomorrow. And then we can figure out an upper spring retainer, which I think is going to be a pipe. Just a pipe that bolts onto those bolts.
Yeah.
That way it can be unbolted and slid out. That'll be a good course of action, I think.
You want a smaller diameter pipe?
I'll just use these other spring perches.
For the, okay, yeah, the lowers for the top.
Just a little, yeah.
I like that.
I think that'll be pretty solid.
Yeah. It should sit right. Because it's right back to where we had leveled it.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Well, here, we can check. Just put that at the bottom of the rocker. Frame, yeah. Oh, is that dead nuts?
0 degrees. Maybe 1 degree. I'll call it a half degree.
That's pretty good.
The frame's not perfectly straight, but
That's pretty good.
that's not bad. That's not bad.
I like it. All right, now that the front axle is pretty well in place with the spring mounts anyways, it's time to start building the control arms. These are going to be radius arms, like I've mentioned a couple of times. And they're built to bolt right into the Superduty front end, so that I don't have to do anything with building brackets, making bushings, putting heims. It's going to go right in. It's supposed to anyways. And hopefully, like I mentioned when I was looking at this truck, hopefully there's enough clearance underneath the frame for this lower control arm, or the upper, to go from the upper radius arm mount down to the radius arm. So I think it'll be okay. We've actually got more clearance than I thought, but I want to get that done so that I can take the jack stands out from under the truck and have this actually sitting on its own weight with the axle located forward to back. And then until the track bar bracket kit comes in, then I won't be able to do anything with the track bar to center the axle left to right. I gotta wait for steering to come in too, and I'm just working with what I got today. So I'm going to start by finishing the welds on the upper spring mounts and then moving on to the control arms, I think is the plan. I'm gonna jump right in. All right, it's been a couple of weeks since I've been working on this thing, so let me get you back up to speed just for a couple of seconds. I know you've probably been watching this all at the same time, but it's helpful for me to kind of recap before jumping into work. So let me show you where we're at. So I've started welding on the control arm brackets, the radius arm brackets. This radius arm is pretty well done. I need to finish weld this piece here, weld the bung into the end of this, and then Boom, done. Oh, and I need to finish weld the bung into the end of there. However, the other one is still in many pieces over there. So I gotta copy this one. Once I get this one welded, I'll put that one next to it, copy it. And then on the other side, we can measure and get the frame bracket welded in while these are cooling. And then these can be bolted in semi-permanently. They're gonna have to come back apart for paint and everything. And then I still gotta get my track bar done and all of that. My spring perches are a little bit too narrow, so they need to come towards the outside of the axle. So I'll just cut these two welds that hold the cylinder to the base. I've got another set, so we'll move it over. I can put little supports from the bottom down to the axle tube to support it up. And then, of course, same thing on this side. That needs to be moved over, and then a little support piece underneath, and that should be good to go. And then this thing could theoretically sit on its own weight, but I'm still waiting on my steering stuff, so that'll be the track bar brackets, frame side, and axle side. I got to get my tie rod and my drag link kit, and all of that is coming from Rough Stuff, and they're the ones that I bought the radius arm mounts from. So honestly, the reason I went with them is for the price. Couldn't really beat it. They were the cheapest ones I could find in the kit with the stuff that I wanted. And the radius arms came in really fast, but it's been about a month since I've ordered my steering stuff, and I'm still waiting on them. So once the radius arms are in, that's about all I'm going to be able to do on this as far as the straight axle swap goes. The only other thing I could do really is pull the motor out of it, which I really don't care to do right now, considering I don't have a scrap pile going, and there is always plenty of stuff to do around here. I mean, I got this truck I can get finished up, which would be pretty nice. So for today, I'm gonna go ahead and get to work, try to get these radius arms finished up, get it to where the spring mounts are permanent where they need to be. And then that's probably gonna be all for the first video. So let's go ahead and jump right in and get some work done. All right, so on this side of the Superduty axle, this is the driver's side, the mounts have this little cutout here. So the radius arm kit that I bought works perfect. On the passenger side, all the way over here, see there's no cutout. And so when you put the radius arm on and you try to lift it high enough to where the mount would hit the frame up here, it actually contacts about right here where this line is that I drew. And the upper does the same thing. It only comes down so far. So I gotta cut this back. I'm gonna try to just triangle cut it to this gusset, or this thicker piece that's right here. And hopefully that'll be enough clearance that I can get it. Because once the radius arms fit in here and are the geometry that they're going to be on the axle side, they'll never flex. That's just the way radius arms work. But I need them to be in here at the correct angle to start with. So I'm gonna cut that open. If it's hollow all the way through, like that, you can see, I'll probably weld in some reinforcements kind of to match the driver's side, how the outer piece kind of goes in and then comes back out. That shouldn't be too hard to do, but yeah, I gotta cut this out so that I can actually get my radius arms in. All right, the radius arms are full welded. The frame brackets up here are full welded, and the support pieces are welded on. I got that done on both sides. And I got these moved over. I was able to cut the driver's side one all the way off, and then I'm just welding a new one. You can kind of see, maybe not, right there is kind of the circle where the inside was. And so I moved it over quite a bit, pretty much as far as I could before hitting this mount is how far I moved them over on both sides. So I haven't built the support piece for this yet and all the other stuff. I got to make sure and get the coil in here. I measured and used plumb bobs and everything. So you can see that's really well lined up, and the axle is not perfect. It's a little shifted because I bumped it while I was welding, but that should be just about where it needs to be. See that there, for these springs to actually sit straight. So really, that's probably going to be it for this video. Like I said, I'm still waiting for a lot of parts, and I can only do so much with what's here. I'm not really in a hurry to finish this truck. It's got a nice cozy spot to sit in here in the shop, but so far, I'm really happy with the progress on this thing. It's coming out really good. Next video, hopefully, will be putting all the steering stuff on as soon as I get that. And then I've also got a rooftop tent and some bed clamps to go on the bed rails on the back. And then I guess we got to start pulling the motor. So thank you guys for watching. Hopefully this is a project you guys are going to be really interested in. I'm already having a ton of fun building it. I like doing a lot of fabrication and custom work like this and making a rig truly my own. And so I'm excited for this one. So make sure you like and subscribe and stay tuned for the next one. See you then.